the government wants to make sure the only people allowed there are people from China. It does not include Seth Everett. Although I think he's bought a couple of pairs of LeBrons, if I'm not mistaken. Or maybe a Bobby Bonilla throwback back to the 1990s when Bobby Bonilla was telling New York writers to make your move. Did he ever tell you make your move, Seth Everett, in the Mets dugout in the Mets locker room?
I so wanted you to ask me about my great shoe story from Italy.
Oh, you have an Italian shoe story?
Italian shoe story.
Are they Bruno Mali's by any chance?
Nope.
And were you buying them? Was O.J. Simpson in there buying his Bruno Mali's?
Yeah. So I'm a little older. I'm a little younger than that. I went to Formula E race, and I didn't know because when I pack, Tony, you do this, Harry, you do this, but Robin probably does. I don't look at my clothes when I pack them. I just throw them in a suitcase. And I threw my sneakers in the suitcase, and I didn't realize that my dog had chewed through the front of them.
Oh.
And I didn't know this until I get to Italy, and there's a big hole in my shoe. And I go to this race because I had to wear sneakers because you had to walk miles to get to the track. And I'm in Italy, and the CEO of Geox Shoes wants to have a media meet and greet. And I'm walking in there with a hole in my shoe. And he gave me like a 50% off voucher to get Geox Shoes. And I go into the Italian store, and no one speaks any English. And I'm trying to go. And when you buy clothes, when you buy shoes in Italy, it's a presentation. You get a fancy box and a bag and streamers. And I, like a little 8-year-old, go, do you mind if I wear them out? and then I was trying to tell them that they could take my sneakers and they could burn them. And they were like, what did you burn? What do you mean burn? What is a burn? And I had to explain myself. And that's how I have my Italian shoes.
And you still have them to this date?
Geox.
Yeah, it was last year. Geox.
Not Geoff, which is a guy's name.
No. They're Geox shoes, and they're awesome. They're my favorite shoes. I don't wear them now because I don't leave my house. But
wait, I have a question, though. You got 50% off of what, though? Like, how much was the total for these shoes?
It was probably, I probably spent $90. It probably would have been $200 shoes.
It's a good job out of you, man. Not buying the cheap stuff. I always go for the cheapest shoes and then wear them out and then put a piece of cardboard in the bottom.
This guy was dressed to the nines, and I had my big toe sticking out of my shoe. I was so embarrassed.
Beautiful. We're talking with Seth Everett, of course, who's a baseball guy, has his own podcast. You got your own Twitch channel, too, don't you?
Yes, and I believe I'm auto-hosting you guys, so you're on my Twitch channel. Hello,
everybody. Hi, everybody. Hi, everybody on Seth Everett's Twitch stream. All right, now, it is Bobby Bonilla Day, and when I think of Bobby Bonilla, I have to think of you. Although we did have Dennis Gilbert on, his agent, who is phenomenal, as you know, one of the great baseball agents of all time.
Sure.
But it's not just Bobby Bonilla. I mean, there's a whole bunch of guys still collecting cash from great deferred payment deals, and a lot of this had to do with the Bernie Madoff stuff back in the day, and that's when the Mets, figured, hey, we're going to make more money, so let's defer the payments later on. But as I mentioned to Dennis Gilbert last hour, Seth, is that the Mets actually, despite the deal that they got rid of Bobby Bonilla, because he was at the end, he was batting like 166, so he wasn't really doing anything for them, but they were able to parlay that into going out and getting some players that actually helped them later on, and they got David Wright from the compensatory pick, one of the picks that they made. So while the Mets are getting ripped all the time, and it's easy to meet the Mets, greet the Mets, all you want to do is
up and beat the Mets.
Yeah. Well, and that joking of an organization laid off 25 employees last night. No one's talking about that. And these employees have been busting their butts to get this hodgepodge stupid season getting going, and they laid off those guys. But it's good that Tim Tebow's still on the roster.
Well, he's got the 60-man thing. It doesn't mean he's going to make the team, though. Did he make the 60-man cut?
You laid off all these people. Why did the Wilpons choose last night as the night to lay off these 25 people who I guarantee you have more class and dignity than anybody in the Wilpon family?
Well, that's probably true. That's not a subject for debate, is it?
No. But as far as that deal is concerned, Madoff was their financial advisor.
I know.
It wasn't just that they had invested with him. He was their advisor, and from everything I was ever told for them, this was a deal that they were trying to keep quiet. That was the other funny thing, is they wanted that deal to be held quiet so that we never knew. Because back then, the Wilpons, and that was Fred, not Jeff, was obsessed with the media. And Jeff, the only difference is he's obsessed with social media.
And I hear you. So so that was a salary dump to get rid of Bonilla. But then they went out and spent $10 million more with Mike Hampton, remember, and Derek Lee.
Yep.
They picked them up. They had to pay them more money. But then obviously,
And then Mike Hampton left for Colorado because of the school system.
Right, and then he went to Colorado, but they got a compensatory pick and turned that into David Wright. So there were some actual good moves being made.
David Wright was the last active baseball player that I had a beer with.
Is that breaking news?
Wow.
I know. Oh.
What kind of beer?
I don't remember, but when David retired, I said, that's it. My run is over. Because I used to go out with players when I was in my 20s, but they were all in their 20s. Now all the players are still in their 20s, and I'm not in my 20s anymore.
Now, I'm just getting this breaking news from football here. From great noted football guy Mike Florio, who wrote, Week 1 and Week 4 will be preseason weeks that are scrapped. So basically, they're going to play 2 preseason games instead of 4 instead of 4 preseason games. Didn't we already know that?
We kind of figured that.
Yeah,
we just
exactly.
didn't know
Can I
which
ask you
ones.
guys, would you go? If you had a credential, would you go? Because I just got
Not to a preseason game.
Would you go to a regular season game?
Sure.
If it's deemed unsafe for the public, you're going to go to an Eagles game?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm going to go down there and sit
feel
next.
weird.
I'm going to sit next to Mike Trout, and this way, when Zach Ertz catches a touchdown pass, I'll get the football for once.
Well, Mike Trout will have been home in quarantine because he has no reason to go play.
So you obviously are steadfastly against the 60-game season, and let's play ball now. Let's play two.
It is hodgepodge, and the 101-page booklet that baseball gave the players on the safety protocols is the dumbest thing in the world. You get suspended if you argue with the umpire, but when you're in your car driving out of the players-only lot, go wherever the hell you want and do whatever you want and come back and take your temperature. Makes a lot of sense. At least the NBA and the NHL are trying to keep a bubble. And there's no bubble in this. And Fauci's funny because Fauci wants there to be a bubble in football, but there's no place that you can put.
There's no way you could do that.
You can't keep the numbers all together. So that's impossible. But in baseball, it's totally possible if you made it the rule, and they didn't want to do that. They wanted to isolate, and the players said no. And that was the fight that I thought was worth fighting for, not the money. The money was never the thing that should have been debated because the owners were lying about their money anyway.
So you don't want to see baseball for health reasons, not because 60 games is not enough to determine a champion.
I think that what's going to happen is the players, and I told you my Tinder line from the last time I was on your show, half the clubhouse is going to be on Tinder during the national anthem. Mm-hmm. And what will happen is that virus will spread. Now, people have different views on whether it's a big deal if a young 25-year-old strapping athlete gets COVID, because usually he's asymptomatic. And I get that, and I understand. We don't know the health ramifications, but that's not even my point. My point is the pitching coaches, the hitting coaches, the managers, the general managers, the broadcasters, all those people who are in their 50s, 60s, and 70s. And again, it's not that they're not going to keep the protocols. The problem is those players, especially when they're on the road, are going to do whatever the hell they want. And they know it, and no one's going to respect quarantine rules, and that's why this season is doomed.
Well, we'll see. I mean, what happens if these players don't get it? What happens if they practice safe sex distancing, as Dr. Fauci mentioned a couple of months ago when somebody was asking, can you still have sex if you pick up a woman online? Remember, Fauci was on a podcast where they asked him, can you have sex during this quarantine era?
If you wear a mask, right?
No, he didn't even say mask. He said, yeah, you can do that. So if he said you can do it then, why can't you do it now?
Do you think, you've been covering sports long enough, Tony, do you really think that these players, after a long 9-inning game with 27 strikeouts between the Phillies and the Braves, and you think the Phillies are in downtown Atlanta and they're not cruising?
Hell yeah, they're cruising. I didn't say they weren't.
That's all it is.
I'm saying, but they've had more serious diseases which could end their lives through baseball history.
Before they got out of the minor leagues.
Back when they were on trains going to games, they had more things to worry about than coronavirus.
Well, that's the other funny part is they rigged the schedule so that the Mets could play the Yankees and the Cubs could play the White Sox a bunch. But what do they tell the Colorado Rockies? Do they have to not go on an airplane every day? And the Atlanta Braves and the Marlins, that's a great one. Why don't the Marlins go around in South Miami, right in Little Havana, where that ballpark is? And I know where the hotels, because I stayed there. I've stayed in Brickell, where the teams stay in Miami. And it's impossible not to be social. When their social distancing doesn't exist in Brick Hill, Florida.
But by the way, our governor here in Pennsylvania just announced today that if you step outside your house, you have to wear a mask now. So everybody's going to be forced to wear masks. There's nobody who enforces it. You're going to tell baseball players when they walk outside after the game that they have to wear a mask and they're going to listen to it?
No, you're not. And that's why the NBA and the NHL are going to go off without a hitch. And if you're noticing, in the NBA, there's all these positive cases. It's because the players aren't in the bubble yet.
But what about the NFL? But Seth, the NFL players are going to go home every day.
I don't know what to say about the NFL.
You said they're going to be in a safer situation. They're not. There's like, how many people are in an NFL franchise? There's like 60 people.
Oh, no.
They're all going to go home.
No, I never said that. I said baseball is dumber than the NBA and the NHL. I never said football. I don't know what to do with
football. I thought
football.
you said, you may have slipped and said, accidentally said football has gotten it right. They haven't got it because they can't do it either.
I don't know how
Football
they
and
can do
baseball
either.
cannot. There's no way they can keep it safe enough because players are going to go home to their families every single day in the NFL.
Yep, and every day. And I don't know how they're going to – and canceling 2 preseason games is not going to solve anything. I don't know how they're doing it. And I'm not going to be one of those Debbie Downer types that's going to just say cancel everything. But I have not seen a plan for football that seems smart.
Well, as far as baseball, when do the schedules come out, Seth?
Well, we got an email saying credentials and such like that, and they're supposedly the union has to ratify the schedule because what they're trying to do is they're going to have an overabundance. Without fans in the stands, they're going to have an overabundance of night games because everybody wants, prime time viewing, as opposed to what's the difference if you're at 1 o'clock on a Tuesday, because it's not like you can get away and have a businessman special or something like that. It doesn't apply. So I know they're working on the little kinks of that, and they're also trying to figure out the travel as, like, how are the Rockies getting from Houston to Oakland or wherever they're going? Like, how are they doing that? And that's going to be hard. And those are the things that they have not worked out yet.
It'll be a charter jet.
Yeah, but I've been on those charter jets.
It's like the PGA Tour when they go from one stop to the other.
I've been on those planes. They share those planes with a lot of different franchises from other sports. So those planes have to be cleaned, they're saying it, but that's what Delta's saying. You know what I mean? For example, most teams in baseball, I would say more than half of the teams use Delta. And I know the flight attendants, they're very nice people, but they are going to have it's still an airplane. It's a chartered plane, but it's still an airplane. And the virus can travel in an airplane more than in a bus. And baseball, with its short-sightedness, only cares about the fact that the Red Sox can bust to New York, but they don't think about what the Colorado Rockies are doing. And it's a mess. It's a hodgepodge season. It's a mess, and it doesn't make sense.
Of course, we all know that, but people still want to play the games. The players, for the most part, want to play. The owners want to play. I'll give football teams credit, though. They're at least telling their fans, if you don't want to go to a game this year, we'll give you your money back. Not every team has done it, but at least they're giving people that up. No one's forcing anybody to go to a game, Seth.
Agreed. The one thing from a baseball standpoint that I look forward to is and I say this about basketball too, and I don't know if you guys agree. I don't want to hear the reasons why these players are opting out. I respect anybody who wants to opt out, and they can do it, and that's collectively bargained. But Trevor Ariza's situation is very, very different than Ryan Zimmerman's. And those things are very, very different. And I don't want to put people in a position where I'm judging. Trevor Ariza's in a custody battle. That has nothing to do with COVID-19.
Exactly.
And so what I would there are PR people that work for these leagues, aren't there? Like, to just say, if Trevor Ariza wants to opt out, how about this? Trevor Ariza is opting out because he feels it's unsafe. Done.
But why would he lie?
What? Because he doesn't owe us an explanation as to why. He's utilizing the clause in saying,
okay, I hear what you're saying.
If it's unsafe, it's unsafe. That's it. I don't want to know these guys' personal situations. It makes me feel awkward because I don't want to be judgmental on them.
But when a guy says that he's got 4 kids,
well, Zimmerman's got a kid, 3-year-old baby,
right,
a 3-week-old baby,
and doesn't he? Who's the one that has 4 kids, 1 on the way? And he says he doesn't want to. Ian Desmond.
Desmond
says, I have 4 kids, 1 on the way. and I don't think it's worth the risk.
But
And then he went on. He also said
he wants to coach a youth baseball team that he works with.
And then he also said, because all of a sudden, after 11 years in the major leagues, the locker room is racist and homophobic.
He was all over the place in his statement.
Yeah, I get it. Listen,
but that's what I mean. So I see Ian Desmond, and some people were praising it, some people were ripping it, and all I'm saying is, how about this? Ian Desmond opted out because he thinks it's unsafe. That's it.
Okay.
We're done.
I want to know why. I want to know why.
They want you to know why, some of these guys.
Yeah,
that's why
fine.
they put out a 3-page Instagram
I'd rather a guy
post.
tell me the truth than make something up. Just like the baseball clause that Brian Cashman and the Cubs people were talking about today.
Oh, the HIPAA laws? That we
the
can
HIPAA
put
law.
you on the COVID-19 list, but we don't have to say that you tested positive?
Exactly. And
What
we're going
is
to leave
the
it up to people like you, Seth Everett, to figure out who the player is that might have COVID-19 when you don't see him anywhere near the organization.
My alma mater, Syracuse, has said that they'll tell the World Health Organization, but they won't tell the media how many of their football players have COVID-19. So I responded in an email, and I said, so is it okay if I go on Twitter and say the entire offensive line has COVID-19? And he was like, well, that's not true. I go, tell me it's not true. Prove it. And what is the cloak and dagger? Nobody is saying that if 7 Syracuse players test positive, that enrollment's going to drop. In Clemson, they're doing it practically on purpose.
Clemson,
Alabama,
half the team has
LSU, and Clemson. That's smart. That's why the SEC is the dominant football conference.
They're getting it all out of the way.
Get it out of the way, boys. We got some football to play. Let's get down there in Jordan-Hare Stadium and play some football, boys.
That's right.
Let's get between the hedges.
They're probably taking a Gatorade and passing it around the clubhouse.
Nothing wrong with that, man. Nothing wrong with that.
Hey, it's like the chickenpox parties of yesteryear.
I remember.
Yeah.
I remember.
I
had them.
Ryan Zimmerman's mom also has MS.
Yeah,
I see.
Those are
Again,
legitimate reasons.
Again, that's fine. I don't want to know that.
Why not?
Because I don't want to now have somebody saying, well, Ryan Zimmerman, you're not doing this because of safety. You're doing this for somebody else, and you should put your team first. I don't want to hear
nobody's going to
idiots.
say that. I think most people will accept the fact that we know that the virus obviously affects younger people who have symptoms like COPD and all the other things, or morbidly obese people. But that gives, when I hear a guy saying, I got my kids, I got a son who has cystic fibrosis, I don't want to take that chance, then I say, you know what? I'm 100% behind you. Anybody who criticizes, I'm behind all of them. I'm not behind all of them.
What about the guy on the Wizards that says, I'm a free agent, I don't want to do it?
That's a weasel. I'm not. I think that guy's a weasel.
He's got
How about that?
He's got a big payday.
But that's my point. He's doing something that he collectively bargained.
Our job is to judge here. How long have you been doing this, Seth? Our job is to judge.
Bertans is basically being like a college football player that's skipping the bowl game, a meaningless bowl game,
and the combine
because he wants to go pro.
He's skipping the combine because he doesn't want to tweak an ankle like Zaire Smith did for the 76ers.
The Orlando Bubble Bowl.
So, in other words, Tony, you want to have the chart where you can go weasel, not a weasel, weasel, not a weasel.
Why do you think all these radio stations have contests at the end of the week? Winner of the week, weasel of the week, loser of the week.
Bob Raceman called me dweeb of the week once. I thought it was a badge of honor.
Exactly. We better keep doing some more Mount Rushmores before they tear Mount Rushmore down. Then what are we going to do? What are we going to do when you got Mount Rushmore of your favorite players?
Your iconic career should not include one thing about a Mount Rushmore.
No one has knocked and mocked Mount Rushmore shows than me in the history of broadcasting.
That is not what I think of you when I think of you doing a radio show.
I've never done. There could be no sports, and I would never resort to a
you
Mount
know what
Rushmore
mine were? When I was starting in the business, mine were, should Pete Rose be in the Hall of Fame?
Yep.
And should Casey Martin be able to drive a cart?
Oh, golf
You remember
cart.
those?
Yeah.
Because those were, those made the phones ring.
Instantly. Could you imagine doing sports talk radio in 1968 with the seatbelt fight?
Oh, yeah.
With all these people calling up going, I can't believe they're making us wear a seatbelt. They're taking our inalienable rights. They're making us wear a seatbelt.
Do you know how many pissed off? Imagine how many pissed off sports radio guys were when Pete Rose finally admitted that he bet on baseball. I mean, there was one of those evergreens that you could just throw out there anytime there was nothing to talk about.
It was gold.
I just saw this here. This is on CBSSports.com. NFL might ask fans to sign a coronavirus liability waiver to attend games
That's what these
season.
day camps are doing, too.
Waiver? I didn't even kiss her.
Would you sign it, Seth?
No, and that's why I don't know if I'm going. I got the email. I can go to Citizens Bank Park. I don't know if I want to.
Now, Seth, you have 2 or 3 children?
2 children.
2 children. Both are healthy, right?
Yeah, they're good.
You have a dog, which
I do.
People do love. People love the photograph that I updated your photograph.
You did?
And
Is that the dog that ate the shoe?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Adorable, by the way.
He's cute, right? Yeah.
And listen,
nice.
I'm not judging you. If you don't want to go to the baseball games, you don't go. I'm not forcing you to go. I'm not telling you you have to go.
Conflicted. I'm so conflicted. I think I want to get the antibody test, and then
I just had it done, and I'm pissed off because I tested negative. I wanted to test positive.
Yeah, I do too. I want the antibodies.
Well, Seth, do you know where if you went to Citizens Bank Park to cover a Phillies game, what would the situation be? Where would they sit you?
What I think they would be is assigned seats in the writer's box, and they would take all the booths that are not being used, and they would put alternate media in there.
Oh, okay.
That's where I think. But don't forget, there's nobody in the stands.
Right.
So you could put somebody in that stands area right underneath the press box, and that's shaded. I would offer to sit there.
Yeah.
I want to sit in the left field seat so I get foul balls because I would not be afraid.
I just feel
and I'll bring a glove, and I
American
just want to
public-
shag foul balls and then sell them later on as COVID balls on my website, TonyBrunoShow.com/store.
Wear a glove. You'd wear a glove to the game.
I'd bring a glove
Yeah.
to the game as a media member now, not as a fan.
Right.
And then I would shag the fly balls that are all out of bounds,
Right.
out foul, and then I'd have a bag, a backpack, and I'd put them all in there, and then I would sell COVID ball, and I would get the player who hit the foul ball to autograph it, increasing
Media
its
can't
value.
get autographs.
I will be able to do that. This will be a special
been to-
dispensation. I'll get
I've
a
been
special.
to minimum 25 baseball games every year since 1996.
Well, you don't actually have to go to the game to be able to catch foul balls anymore, Tony. You can do like the Oakland A's
And the San
Yes.
Francisco
And
Giants
the
are
San
doing
Get
it.
a cartoon of
Yeah.
myself.
A cardboard cutout of Seth Everett.
You pay $89, and you have your cardboard cutout put in a seat.
In your seat,
In
where your
your
season
seat.
Right,
ticket
in
is.
your
Although,
seat.
did the A's have anybody in any seats? I mean, how you
Well, the
gonna
guys
figure
that
it?
play the drums, that
Oh,
bang
yeah,
the
those guys.
drums, those guys.
But it doesn't have to be season ticket
He gets a
holders. It can
special
be
pass.
anybody.
Yeah.
For $89, you can have your picture on a cardboard cutout, and then you can pay $40 extra to be put in the
Behind home plate? The home plate?
Foul ball zone.
the foul ball zone, so that if a baseball hits your cutout, you then get that baseball sent to you.
Well, there you go,
wow,
Tony.
there you go. Somebody's thinking out there. It's a good job. Now, you against that, Seth?
Am I against cartoons?
Cardboard cutouts.
Harry and I had cardboard heads way
Yeah.
back in the day when we had listeners.
I remember I was at a fair, at a street fair in Seattle, and I bought a 6-foot cardboard cutout of Superman, and I used to put it in the front door of my house. So when you walked into my apartment, you would see the Superman. And I always thought if a girl saw that when she walked in and still walked in the apartment,
She's
that
a
was
keeper.
marriage material.
She's a keeper.
Exactly right. I just put my Michael Jordan on my turntable and played it around and around during the holidays. That's a bad reference, too. Remember the movie, Harry?
I do.
Did that happen?
No. What movie?
Home Alone, the first Home Alone.
First Home Alone.
When Macaulay Culkin's trying to confuse the robbers, so he puts
yeah,
Michael Jordan
okay.
on a turntable, and Jordan's going around and around. And Joe
okay.
Pesci's stupid enough not to realize, and Daniel Stern.
Oh, they can see the shadow through the window? Yeah, okay, I got you.
Come on, man.
Yeah.
Jeez. Seth Everett, ladies and gentlemen, check him out on his Twitch channel. What's the name of the Twitch channel?
Seth Everett.
There you go, ladies and gentlemen. That's 2 E. It's 1 E and 2 T's. Ever.
And
X.
you know that Tony, this show and Seth's show has another thing in common.
What's that?
Caleb also interns for them.
I
Yeah,
did
he
not
helps
know
us
that.
there.
The Caleb
And he's
Matumba.
great, and he's telling me I'm getting ripped in the chat. That's
Is
what
that
I'm-
right?
He's a snitch. He gets paid to